Welcome everybody to first session of Wine eCommerce. Let me first by saying, can you hear me? Can I get a show of hands about everybody can hear me? Yes, yes. Some more yeses here. Everybody can hear me? Good, good, good. I like the answer yes. It's my favorite word. Okay, great. So my name is Ron Sharman, and I'll be your instructor for the next 8 weeks as we take our journey into Business 843W 101-2017 Wine eCommerce. And I'm really happy to be here tonight, starting the class every year. This is my 4th year teaching the course. I start by reminding myself to speak slowly since I'm from New York, and I tend to speak fast at times, particularly when I get excited about a subject matter. So forgive me for that. I'll try to keep myself somewhat restrained, not to speak too fast. Greetings from downtown Napa, which is pouring rain today. The flood in Northern California, I guess the floods and the snow in the Sierras has taken care of the drought we had. But I'm looking forward to some sunny days from here on out. A little bit about some of the formalities of the class. This is a pass-fail course. We will have one significant semester project, which we'll get to at the end of today's session. And then we have 1 or 2 homework assignments, which are meant to stimulate your thoughts in the course of the 8 weeks. I also will likely have 1 or 2 guest lecturers to come in at certain points in time, particularly the session we do on social media marketing, which is one of the best sessions of the semester, and some other surprises along the way. But hopefully you'll enjoy the course and you'll have some stimulating things to think about. I have posted a suggested reading list in Moodle, which I encourage you to look at. I don't want to say it's an eclectic mix, but it's a collection of things that I've pulled together over the last 4 years. I've been teaching the course for 4 years, and I update it throughout the year. I don't just update it for you. I update it for my team here in my day job, which is in the digital marketing area. And so I encourage you to read some of the articles on there. They come from a lot of things outside the wine industry, inside the wine industry, but it's really about the incredibly fast-paced, changing environment of e-commerce, digital marketing, social marketing, and the revolutionary things that are happening not just annually, but monthly, sometimes weekly. So I'm constantly adding. In the course of the next 8 weeks, there'll probably be more things, undoubtedly, I'll be adding to the reading list. It always happens that way. But feel free to pass on articles you may read that are interesting to you, or if there are topics that you think you'd like to be covered that we haven't been covering, feel free to email me with them, and I'll happily see if I can add them to the course. I have no pride of authorship over interesting topics. Also, I'd like to mention that I tend, in the course of doing these sessions, there are a lot of acronyms that are used. I try to explain them. Sometimes I don't. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know if you don't understand something. I've got my chat open and happy to explain things, but we live in the world of acronyms. It's definitely the case in the wine industry, and I want to make sure that things are explained, because there is quite a diverse group of you out there with lots of different backgrounds. I'll get into that in a minute. As I mentioned, this is the 4th year teaching the class. I created the syllabus from scratch, and you know, it's an evolving work that changes week by week, and we'll see how it goes. But I have no doubt that you'll come out of this course learning a lot more than when you started, and it will probably open up your eyes to a lot of things that I think will be good in your careers going forward, whatever that may be. So as we close on this first opening soliloquy, let's move on to the rest of the semester. So, who am I? Why am I here? Where are we headed? Past, present, future of wine e-commerce. So as I said, I'm Ron Sharman, and I really enjoy teaching this class because I believe that the future of the wine industry is really based on the young professionals that are working in the industry that are either entering out of college or coming from other careers. And I think that it's important that they have a sense of history and a sense of trends that are happening outside the wine industry. And so much of what I base my syllabus on is really best practices on things that are really working well for other specialty retailers outside the wine industry and for some inside the wine industry. And I think it's great to share that information so that people that are coming into the industry or are already in the industry and want to move into another functional area have the tools and the skills and the knowledge base to accomplish their goals. And so we're going to be headed into an exciting sort of framework of discussions about how you drive traffic online through digital marketing tools and what's coming down the pike for all of us in this space. We'll talk also a bit about the past, present, and future of wine commerce, get into that as well, and give everybody a frame of reference on how marketing evolved into what is now digital marketing and e-commerce. So, who am I? I'm currently CEO of Astra Digital Marketing Services and Fly with Wine. Astra Digital Marketing Services is a digital marketing agency based in Napa. We have about 15 clients currently who we perform social media marketing, email marketing, mobile marketing, SEO, SEM, all things digital, build websites. Company was founded in August of last year. At the same time that I also launched a company called flywithwine.com, which is a company that markets the most amazing wine luggage on the planet for transporting wine on an airplane. You can mix wine with your personal effects, and it's a great product. It also allows us to use it as a laboratory for testing best practices. We have, not only do we have our own website, but we have a store on Amazon, we're on eBay, we're about to go on the Walmart marketplace, and we plan to be in about a dozen marketplaces by the end of the year. And so a lot of the tools that we use for that particular product offering, we also are able to use for the wine industry as well. Before that, I should say also I've been teaching Sonoma State for the last 4 years in the Wine Business Institute, and before that for several years I was a sort of a guest lecturer in some of the undergraduate programs as well. Before that, for 2 years I was a Chief Operating Officer of Chatterbox Wine Marketing, vinovisit.com. Chatterbox was a company that combined both wine telesales with digital marketing services, and VinoVisit was a winery reservation platform that had about 700 wineries on the platform where consumers could make reservations 24/7 for tastings at wineries. Before that, for 7 years, I was president and owner of eWinery Solutions, one of the pioneers in e-commerce that was purchased by Granberry Solutions 2.5 years ago. So I have a pretty strong background in the e-commerce in the wine industry, having probably built over 1,000 websites for wineries during that time. Before that, for 2 years, I was COO of New Vine Logistics, which is one of the pioneers in wine fulfillment. Ultimately, after I left to join eWinery, it was eventually liquidated by the venture capitalists that owned it, and is now what is the facility that Wine Direct has become, which is the largest wine fulfillment company. Before that, I was CEO of the Morel Wine Group in New York, which is one of the largest retailers of wine in the Northeast. Very much a diversified wine company that had a wine bar at Rockefeller Center, had a restaurant, had an auction house, had a wine storage division. We produced about 2 million catalogs a year, and we had 2 websites, all things wine. I spent about 15 years in total as a specialty retailer, not only in wine and cosmetics and fragrance industry and consumer products. I have my MBA from Cornell, as well as an undergraduate degree from there. I'm a lover of all things food and wine. I'm passionate about direct-to-consumer wine marketing. If you want to find out more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn. And I've spent about the last 20 years really heavily involved in almost every aspect of direct-to-consumer wine marketing. And so not only was it 20 years, but it was 20 years spent over an amazing transition within the direct-to-consumer channel where wine became legal to ship. So it's kind of interesting to see how technology adapted to the changes in the laws, and we'll talk a bit about that as well in the course. So that's who I am. Now, how about you? So I spent a couple hours over the weekend checking out all of you on LinkedIn, Facebook, and some other tools that I use as best I can, because all I really had was a name, an email address, and a state. But it was really interesting to see the diversity. It is my 4th year doing this course. I also teach direct-to-consumer marketing as a 4-hour seminar 3 or 4 times a year, but this is the most diverse class I've ever had. We've got students from South America, from Canada, from Europe, New Zealand, and in addition to California, Washington, Texas, Kansas, New York, Virginia, Wyoming, Massachusetts, North Carolina. It's pretty amazing. I found probably about 60% of the 28 students that are taking the course. Maybe 60-70% I could find out who you were and get your backgrounds, representing about 12 wineries. In those wineries, I got people in sales capacity. I've got some general managers. I've got some winemakers, assistant winemakers. It's quite a mix. Got some wine writers. I've got some accountants and bankers. Got some educators. I've got some sommeliers, some people in wine software, people in small business, and apparently a world-class harpist from New Zealand who must be doing something in the wine industry besides playing music. But what that means is that there's a lot of variation in the knowledge and skill sets that people have in the class. So I mean, some of the stuff I do gets really technical. Some of it's very basic. But please feel free 24/7 to reach out to me via email if you've got questions or comments or things that you don't understand. I'll do my best to go deep into areas that I think are important. You know, sometimes I can't go down to the raw material on everything. So please feel free to reach out to me. We may do some forums along the way that allow you to engage with each other. You know, just don't assume that don't assume anything. And so if you need help, please reach out to me on that. Also, at the end of the classes, I should say that everything will be posted. These are recorded sessions. The link will be up in Moodle for everybody who can't attend the classes to take part in. In order for me to learn more about each of you, what would be really helpful is if you could email me the following. First, what is your wine background? How familiar are you with wine? Because I don't have information on all of you. And even if I do, I may know that you're an educator at a university, but it doesn't tell me that you worked weekends at a winery selling wine, and you may know more about wine than I think you do. So what is your background in wine? Secondly, what are your goals for this course? It's 8 weeks. What are you hoping to get out of it? Thirdly, what e-commerce platforms are you familiar with? The wine industry, we have Vin65, we have eWinery, Granberry, we have Cultivate, we have VineSpring, we have AMS, we got a handful of others. So let me know what e-commerce platforms you're familiar with, even if they're outside the wine industry. Fourthly, email platforms, if you've been using email platforms, if it's MailChimp, if it's Constant Contact, if it's Vertical Response, or if it's the native platforms of the e-commerce providers, let me know what you're familiar with, because it'll give me context to some of the things I discuss when we get into the tools of the trade, so to speak. And I like to know what my students are familiar with or what they're not familiar with will absolutely help me. So I appreciate that. So where are we going? So we're going to go, first we're going to spend some time talking about the past, present, future of e-commerce, and overview of it, and the direct-to-consumer channel of the wine industry. We're going to spend a little time analyzing the direct-to-consumer channel ecosystem. We're going to learn about what omni-channel marketing and omni-channel retailing are. We're going to explore the deal model of customer progression, which allows you to create strategies to connect, collect, and convert your customers and engage with them. We're going to discuss email marketing, social marketing, and other digital marketing strategies and execution, and building and budgeting a digital marketing plan. We'll eventually dive into customer relationship management, an important acronym, CRM. And then we're going to look into the future of retail wine marketing. We'll probably cover some other topics as well, but this is a good start for the framework for the course. So, wine e-commerce versus wine commerce. It was probably about 6-7 years that the dean of the Wine Business Institute asked me while I was at eWinery Solutions if I'd be interested in teaching a new course called Wine e-commerce. And I said, you know, I'm really interested, but I was too busy at the time to really put together a curriculum. But a couple of years later, I said, you know what? I think this would be really great. Let me work on it. And so I launched the course. Was ready to launch the course. There've been such dramatic changes in the digital landscape that I had to tell the dean that I'll teach a course in wine e-commerce, but the term e-commerce almost doesn't make sense anymore, because what exactly is the E in e-commerce? Because since that time, we've launched a point-of-sale tablet, we've launched wine apps, we've launched mobile has grown, social commerce, and everything. So the best way I can sort of give you, you know, the narrative on why this is to give you a visualization of this. Imagine that you are sitting in a stressless chair or a recliner or a couch, and you've got a end table next to you, and you've got a tablet and a mobile phone with you. And you also have on the left side, you have a Wine Spectator magazine, and you're watching TV, and you're watching CNN, and you're watching Anthony Bourdain at Parts Unknown, and he's at this wine bar in Tokyo, a really cool wine bar, and he's drinking a glass of Domaine Chandon Étoile, their high-end sparkling wine. And he's really crazy about the sparkling wine. He's telling us how great it is. So I find it interesting because I remember in my Wine Spectator that you know, there was a picture of Étoile in the Wine Spectator. So I go to forgive me, I said this is you, but imagine this is me, okay? So I go to the Wine Spectator and I look at the ad for Étoile, and there's a QR code there, so I scan it, and it gives me all the ratings. I scan it with my my app. I have a wine app actually. Let's say it's Delectable or Vivino, and I scan it with the app, and it comes up with all the ratings on the wine, the sparkling wine, and said, "This is really great. Let me go and get my tablet out and let me go to the Domaine Chandon website and buy some of the sparkling wine." So I go to the website, and I see that the sparkling wine there. I also see there's a special offer to join the wine club, special discount. And so I realize, okay, it's a beautiful weather in wine country. I'm going to drive out to the winery the next day. And so I join the wine club with a pickup option, so I can pick up the wine at the winery. The next day I get in my car, I drive out to the winery. I arrive in Yountville at Domaine Shandong. I walk into the tasting room, and I see a sign that says, text XXX bubbles and get an extra 20% off on your next purchase. So I immediately get out my phone. I text XXX bubbles. I wait. Immediately, I get a coupon code that's sent to me with a 20% offer. Great. I go into the tasting room. I go up to the tasting bar. I said, hey, I'm Ron Sharman. They say, fine. They look me up in the point of sale system. They say, fine, we have your wine club pickup here for you. I said, look, that's great, but here's my coupon. I'd also like to take a case of your a still wine, and I'd like it shipped to my home. So can you please ring that up to me? And by the way, I'd like to buy a bottle of rosé and drink it out on the patio while you take care of all this. So I go out on the patio, and someone comes out with their mobile point of sale, their tablet, and they ring me up for my case of wine, which they ship to my home. They give me my wine club shipment to take home, and they thank me. Now, you tell me what that is. It involved a magazine, a print magazine. It involved my tablet. It involved my mobile phone. It involved a point-of-sale system, a mobile point-of-sale system, an app. And so it was really what I call a customer anywhere transaction, a C transaction, not an E transaction. And so C is customer anywhere, but it's also commerce. It's all about wine commerce. And so, you know, from my standpoint, it's time to get rid of the E in e-commerce. Most businesses participate in e-commerce in some fashion, and there's really no difference anymore between e-commerce and commerce. You engage your customers in many different channels. You own e-commerce sites. You have your brick and mortar site, in this case, winery, online marketplaces, and other things. Regardless, you and virtually every other business-to-consumer or business-to-business company are selling goods to consumers across those channels. And so it's really the customer anywhere model that we're working on. And there's a great book, which is on the reading list. It's called The Retail Revival, Reimagining Business for the New Age of Consumerism by a guy named Doug Stevens, who's what I call a retail futurist. He's an amazing guy. I recommend you follow him on Twitter. The book was written in 2013 or 14. He has a new edition coming out in May. It's going to be available on Amazon. I've actually purchased it in advance. But it's incredible, and it really gives you a sense of what's happening in retail and e-commerce, so to speak. So I encourage you to get the book, and I encourage you to follow this guy. And, you know, I think we'll be drawing on a lot of this in the course of the class. So we're going to talk about a lot of things here today and in the classes to come. And but there's one fundamental question that I'd like to pose. I've traveled the world of wine on 4 continents. I visited hundreds and hundreds of wineries around the world. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of business plans for selling wine online, and I think I've synthesized the challenge of being successful in the direct-to-consumer channel down to one fundamental question. What is that question? The question is, how do we sell a 3-dimensional story in a 2-dimensional world? How do we sell a 3-dimensional story in a 2-dimensional world? In an age when consumers have been trained and cut their teeth on, over the last 15, 20 years, on Amazon, eBay, Apple, and all other great e-commerce stores and business models, their expectations have been set a certain way. So how do you sell a 3-dimensional story in a 2-dimensional world? Well, what I can say about it is, the truth is it's hard. It's very hard. It's hard to capture the essence of your brand online, and this is everyone's challenge. We live in a world of 5 senses. So customers come, visitors come to your winery, and they walk the vineyards. It's 5 senses. They walk the vineyards. They touch the grapes. They look at the beautiful vineyards. They listen to the barnyard owls. They smell the leaves. They go into the tasting room and they taste this incredible wine. Then they go out to dinner in an amazingly romantic spot with their significant other and have this amazing experience. Maybe they join your wine club, maybe not, but it's a series of great memories. Then they go back to where they came from, and then 6 months later, in the middle of wintertime in Boston, in a snowstorm, they get an email from you that doesn't render on their mobile phone, offering them a product they're not interested in, and it completely bursts their bubble. And we've gone from a 5-sensory experience to a two-dimensional sensory experience. Maybe if you called them on the telephone, it would be a 2.5-dimensional experience, because by talking to them, you could kind of rekindle things. But unfortunately, you can't do that through email. And so the real challenge is, how do I translate this experience and make it vital in a digital world? There's only one way you can do it. Only one way. And that way is to tell your story and to tell it well. Tell your story and tell it well, and focus on the magic 15%. What is the magic 15%? Wine is essentially 85% water and 15% magic. Hold on 1 second, there's a question. I see it's been answered by someone else. Retail Revival, what was the name of the book? Right, Retail Revival, Reimagining Business for the New Age of Consumerism. Thank you for answering that question. Okay. So wine is essentially 85% water and 15% magic. This course is going to focus on the 15%. The magic that is the difference between one winery on Route 29 or Silverado Trail in Napa from the one right next door, because the shrubbery is the same, the architect's the same for the tasting room, the vineyards look the same, but the story may be totally different. So we're going to focus on the 15%. And in order to do that, I want to give you a little sense of the history of marketing about telling your story. I mean, I think it's important. If we go back 100 years ago, 150 years ago, the 19th century, brand owners did not have the power. The power was really the sellers. Sellers had all the power. People who lived outside major urban areas were really dependent on catalogs. You had Sears, Roebuck, and you had Montgomery Ward, the two big retailers. You'd have these catalog stores out in these rural areas, and people would place their orders and then wait a month for the goods to arrive on Pony Express or horseback or coach, whatever it was. And it was really the sellers had all control. Buyers had no power. That model kind of held through World War II. And then in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, you had Madison Avenue and brand owners like Colgate, Kraft, cigarette companies, the car companies. They really took control and created demand by making consumers feel that you were inadequate if you didn't buy and own these brands. And so they really held the power of marketing and helped define the brand. That all changed into the late 90s and into the 21st century. Consumers, particularly with the advent of social media, became the ones that had the power. And they dictate how, when, and where they will do business with you and what they think about you and what your brand really means to them. And so everything has been flipped on their head, and that's really where we are today with telling your story and telling it well. Because if you don't tell your story and tell it well, the consumer will tell their version of it for you. And that may not be the same way that you would tell it. And so it's important to control that as we go through the narrative of this course. That will be an ongoing theme. Okay. So, Seth Godin, who's really a good blogger and written a bunch of books, and I like his stuff. He says, marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but the stories you tell. Then there's me. The notion of connecting a luxury wine brand with its wider digital and cultural ecosystem is now a matter of survival. Anecdotally, I went to uh, DTC Wine Symposium, I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and the founder of Sojourn Cellars, who very successful winery in Sonoma that also has always been one of the more successful online, doing a very good job of their e-commerce. He was on a panel, and they asked him, what was the secret to your success? And he said that when he launched his winery, he had to make a decision about whether he was just another winery selling wine online or whether he was an e-commerce retailer selling luxury products. And he decided that he would rather be an online retailer of luxury products than a winery selling wine online. And so his emphasis really was driven by focusing on the online digital marketplace of luxury branding, working backwards to his winery. And I think that's an important distinction about what this comment of mine is meant to be. Growth stats. The consumer direct channel of the wine industry is the fastest growing, most profitable. I mean, you've heard this. Obviously, we know it's true. We'll look at those stats in a minute. One of the questions I always like to ask, do you as a winery, do you have all the tools necessary to be successful to ride the wave? Because software is really a toolkit for enabling you to run your business and communicating with your customers, brand advocates, prospective customers, and other interested parties. And I say that having owned a software company for 7 years. Not all tools are created equal, and the people who get it are just as important as the tools. If you can answer the following 3 questions, the tools don't matter. So what are the 3 questions? 1, why do I or why does my brand exist? Why should anyone care? Meaning, why should the customer care? And how do I measure success? I say that because just because you build a winery and you have in a great location and you have a beautiful tasting room, what's in it for the consumer? Just because you build a beautiful website and you have all this great stuff about you, the winery, why should the consumer care? And most importantly, how do you measure success? How do you know you're doing a good job or not? Those are some of the things we're going to talk about in the course of the semester. So, U.S. has been the largest wine-consuming nation in the world since 2010. The DTC shipments grew at about 8% in 2015 versus 15% in 2014. I was at the DTC Symposium last week. I was on a panel in digital marketing, and I listened to the presentation of Ship Compliant and Wines and Vines do their annual survey, and they released the numbers for 2016 back up to 17% increase over the year before. So we did great last year for DTC, and it's just a continually growing channel for wineries. By the way, this doesn't even include the illegal shipment that takes place. This is just the legal shipment where people report it. So this all started in 2005, which is, by the way, when I moved out to Napa Valley from New York, is when the Supreme Court decided basically a decision, the 3 cases, one in Michigan, one in Florida, and one in New York, where states had regulated allowing in-state wineries to ship to consumers, but out-of-state wineries couldn't. And the Supreme Court ruled that's illegal. You can regulate, but you can't discriminate. So the state's response was, okay, I won't discriminate, but I'm going to complicate it as much as I can. And so what happened is every state passed their own rules and regulations, and you had companies like Ship Compliant and New Vine Logistics, my original employer when I came out to wine country, come up with compliance solutions to help states comply with all the state laws. This just goes back to the changes that took place in 2005. So the Granholm decision really opened up the, the landscape for DTC. It also highlighted the bottlenecks in distribution between the 2 channels. And I say that because there's something that I call the zero-sum game fallacy, which says that my loss is your gain or vice versa. So distributors, really, the wholesalers fought this tooth and nail because they said, hey, wineries selling direct are taking money out of my pocket, and Of course, that's ludicrous because 90% of all wine is still bought for consumption same day, the next day. They're buying at a supermarket, a grocery store, a wine shop, whatever. And so the example that I like to give, and I wrote a blog on this when I first came out of wine country, was Ralph Lauren in the mid-1980s. Ralph Lauren opened up these outlet stores in these outlet centers 200 miles or so, 150 miles out from the cities. And the retailers at department stores scream bloody murder. Oh, you're taking business out of my pocket. You're going to hurt my bottom line. And at that time, Ralph Lauren was doing about $700 million. Early 1990s, Ralph Lauren started opening up boutiques on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, on the Miracle Mile in Chicago, and Fifth Avenue, New York, other cities. And the department stores were claiming bloody murder. End of the 1990s, early 2000s, Ralph Lauren started opening up boutiques inside the department stores. Last year, Ralph Lauren did over $7 billion in sales versus the $700 million they did in the late 1980s, and department stores can't get enough of it. So, you know, the more your brand is out there, the more it's aware, the more it's on wine lists, the more that you sell DTC, it benefits everybody. It's not a zero-sum game. That's kind of important. Wine Institute latest update, which is very exciting, and they reported this at the symposium last week. We're now up to 44 states out of 50. The good news is Pennsylvania, it was huge. It's already up to the top 10 in wine shipments already, even though it's only been legal for half a year. So you can, some shape or form, get to 44 states. And it's only Utah, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, and Delaware. But almost every other state you can get to now. So this is pretty impressive of where the Wine Institute's come over the last 20 years. And so we're now at a point where you can reach 95% of consumers around the U.S. with the right licenses, which I think is really exciting. And again, this doesn't include all the illegal shipping that's taking place. You've got a lot of wine retailers, you know, Morel, Zaki, Sherry Lehman in New York, Sam's in Chicago, K&L, Wally's in the West Coast. People who are shipping not necessarily legally. So there's a lot of shipping going on that is, you know, educating consumers on ordering online. How important is a DTC channel to the majority of wineries and brands? When I did this last year, we were at 8,200. Now we're up to 9,300. I mean, it keeps growing and growing, right, where there are wineries. Pretty impressive. Believe it or not, small wineries still dominate the DTC channel. You can see here that they categorize small as 5,000 to 50,000. But if you even go for very small, which is less than 5,000 cases, and your limited production, you're still almost 25% of the DTC is being shipped out by small wineries. And probably if you go up to 10,000 cases, you're probably going to be around 35%, 40%. So small wineries may have 5% of production, but they're actually 51% if you include going up to 50,000 cases. And this is the important factor. Last year they reported that 80% of the wineries in Napa Valley, and now there's 1,200 wineries in Napa Valley. Unbelievable. 80% of them are less than 5,000 cases. So it's a myth that only the big wineries can be successful in DTC. Not so. Looks at it another way. Again, you can see if you go very small, limited production, there's still very significant, both in cases and in volume, even more so. You're 26% in volume, total value. Pretty impressive. So what's changed? I keep adding to this. I mean, when I started teaching this course, there was nothing here. But in the last 3 years, so 2003, if you remember this was now a piece of furniture, this dusty, disgusting piece of furniture that was a desktop that used to get, you know, really dirty screen, smudged. It's hard to believe only 10 years ago that we got our smartphones, okay, and the advent of social media, Facebook. It's hard to believe that was 2007. 2010, hard to believe that was the first tablet. 2012 was the advent of HTML5, which was a really important advancement. Up until then, if you remember, you try to load images on your website on your phone, it would take forever. It would take 3 minutes for the Adobe Flash to load. Well, HTML5 is a content, it's content language that allows images to load really fast, and that's only been around for 5 years. Pretty amazing. Next, 2015, the smartwatch. You can do everything on the watch, but it's not a telephone yet, but it does almost everything for you. You can read your email on it. You can, you know, plug in your Fitbit, your you know, apps at the gym. You can text. You can do everything. It's amazing, right? Then in 2016, first came the Dash, which is pretty interesting, which is a product by Amazon that you get in your kitchen, and so you push a button, it automatically reorders your dish soap, your paper towels, all sorts of commodity items automatically through the IoT, which is the Internet of Things. So you put this, it's a magnet that goes on your refrigerator, and you can just automatically order things. Same time, they launched the Echo Dot, which is a smaller version of the Echo, which is like Siri on steroids. But what this allows you to give vocal commands, it manages all the things in your house, Internet of Things, so it controls the temperature of the thermostat, it controls music and TV, but it's also going to be tied into Echo, the Dash, so that you're going to be able to say, please order me a 6-pack of beer at some point, or order me a 6-pack, a half a case of wine, and all be done through verbal commands. So that's coming. So this is kind of exciting to see where we've come over the last 14 years. Everybody, it's a visual, you know, these things are sort of visual, so sometimes we forget. But let me give you the best visual image of how things have changed over 10 years with the next slide. Not this one, but the one coming. So digital experiences are increasingly important in all these fields, right? But the human experience is what's different, and the next slide is the one that tells you how things have changed. This is St. Peter's Basilica, where I happened to be in November. I went to Italy in November for Thanksgiving. I was actually there. But here's 2005 St. Basilica, and here's 2013, 8 years later. Take a look. Everybody with their tablets and their iPhones. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know how the world has changed, it's pretty amazing. So the web has been growing faster than stores, and unfortunately this hasn't been updated, but 2015 is about the same. It's about 16%, and I think it's going to be about the same for 2016. What's really interesting about this is to show how online commerce, e-commerce, has grown so dramatically versus bricks and mortar, other than this particular period in 2007 and 8. And if I ask you what happened here, it's a 6-letter word spelled Lehman, L-E-H-M-A-N, Lehman Brothers. The crash of Lehman Brothers changed the world. And as a result, all of a sudden, everybody had a banker, including wholesalers and distributors, restaurants and retailers and wineries. And so selling wine over $20 a bottle became quite challenging, and so wineries were desperate. And so all these online business models started, like Lot 18, Wine Woot, which was bought by Amazon, End of Bin, Wine Still Sold Out, Napa Connection, ultimately much later was Last Bottle Wines. But all these online flash sale sites started that were based on really cheap wine. Some of them, many of them went away, some of them are still there. But it's really spawned a whole range of business models online for selling wine. You can see what happens. These numbers I just showed you, the DTC model over the last couple of years was 15%, then down to 8%, and then shipments last year reported in at 17%. So it's pretty much the same thing. Just to show you, the web has been growing faster than, as we show, e-commerce versus, as a total percentage of total retail sales has been growing every year. Shifting consumer behavior, you can see where it's going based on demographic. 63% of purchased millennials buy things on a smartphone versus 8% of people who are considered seniors. But the shift is happening across all demographics. Mobile is obviously off the charts. Last year's statistics, if you add up tablet and mobile, 56% of people's time on retail websites was spent on a mobile device, and that's probably even higher as we speak now. This is through June of last year. The share of mobile online sales, you can see this actually was 2015, the same numbers. 2016, this number was actually in the high 40%. It's grown every single year, where people are shopping during key holiday times online. Also, in terms of penetration, you can see the mobile commerce, not just spending time on a mobile site, but in terms of commerce, it's growing to the point where they expect by 2020, over $109 million worth of commerce will happen on mobile devices. It's pretty amazing. So as we talk about mobile and why you have to be mobile and design your websites from a mobile standpoint, is obviously the stats are all there. My phone is my life. Not mobile only, but mobile first. More than half of consumers' digital time is spent on mobile devices. That's over 3.2 hours a day. According to Altimeter, consumers check their smartphones upwards of 150 times per day. Looked at another way, 2008, out of what, 2.7 hours time people spent a day on the internet, only 0.3%, 0.3 of an hour was spent on mobile. Today they spend 5.6, and this is 2015. 2016 isn't published yet, but you can see it was 5.6 hours a day, and half of it, more than half, was spent on a mobile device. So, if you're at a winery right now and you have a website, you go home tonight and you look at your mobile device, you take a look at how your site renders on mobile and how your emails render on mobile. This is actually 2016. The other one was 2015. So again, it's 5 hours a day people are spending on mobile devices versus 4 hours worldwide. This is pretty amazing. People have transformed how they live, work, shop, and buy. Businesses need to adapt in order to be successful. There's no question about it. Let me just check and see if we have any questions, because I have not been paying attention. Nope. Sorry about that. It's all about the customer, omni-channel marketing. This is really an important concept for me, an important topic, because omni-channel retailing is really about being seamless across all channels, including desktop, laptop, tablet, mobile app, social, whatever. And it's about it's not about being integrated or multi-channel. It's being about omni-channel. So you can be integrated. You can have your point of sale integrated with your website or with your inventory system, or you can be multi-channel. You can have You can be direct to consumer, and you can be three-tier, meaning you sell to restaurants and retailers through wholesalers. But that doesn't mean you're omni-channel, which is basically making it a seamless experience for your customers to engage with you across all channels in a way that's relevant, because the journey is no longer non-linear. It's no longer linear. It's a non-linear journey from beginning to end. And so I was a specialty retailer for 15 years. And, you know, when I started, it was a much more linear journey. But you can see today someone may read a blog post, they may look at a display ad, they may read a product review, they may see you on a wine list, they may click on a paid search, look at a review site, they may do search, organic search, visit your website, drive by the winery. So omnichannel marketing is really about being seamless. That's what's really important. And omnichannel retail, and you know, you can see people find you. The seamlessness happens across all of these channels and zones of engagement. But omnichannel retail, as I mentioned, I was a specialty retailer for 15 years. And specialty retail is about making a difference in people's lives. And the wine industry does that really well. And I knew that I worked my tail off when I was in the wine retailer. I worked for 11 months trying to make a difference in the lives of my customers, so that when Christmas time came and our accountants and lawyers and investment banks and everybody else had an opportunity to give 50 wine gifts to 50 different people, they would reward me with those transactions because I had taken care of them all year long. I mean, and so it's really important that you make a difference in their lives. And making a difference means you're relevant. So what does relevant means? Being relevant is a combination of content and context, meaning good content and good context. The best example of that is if I'm Whole Foods and I send you an email a week before Thanksgiving offering you a hand-raised, organic, massaged, amazing, butter-rubbed turkey at an incredible price, you're going to get very excited about it. If I send you the same email with the same exact offer a week after Thanksgiving, you're going to be very pissed off, because why am I sending you something after you've been eating turkey for 4 days? So they're both exactly the same email, the same content, but the context is totally different. And so it's important to understand relevance in your marketing efforts in the digital world, meaning email, social, mobile, web, phone, which is not digital, but same thing, same concept. And Amazon's really set the standard for this. So I think it's just important that you, through all these different touch points, you are relevant to your consumers and seamless as possible. Same offers, same branding, same imagery. That's what consumers expect. Briefly, we're going to just get into this now. The model of customer progression deal is a big part of this course. It's part of omnichannel retail discovery. How do customers find out about me? Search engine, word of mouth, advertising, social media, wine list, whatever. How do they engage with me after they discover me? Do they visit my website, come to my tasting room, post on social media, mobile engagement, whatever? Acquisition, conversion, do they buy wine online? Do they sign up for my email list? Do they buy wine in the tasting room? Do they join a wine club? They come to a winemaker dinner. And loyalty and love. How do they show their love for me, and how do I show it to them? Through email, Facebook shares, special events, ratings, however it might be, word of mouth. That's all very important. That's going to be a good part of the course. The deal concept is really the concept of managing the life cycle of a customer relationship, which is what I call a California success story. It's about how you find and convert a prospective customer and turn them into an annuity, like a wine club. And also focusing on what is the lifetime value of a customer, which is the heart and soul of specialty retail in the wine industry. This includes both strategic and tactical elements. And it's something that we're really going to spend a lot of time on over the next 3 weeks of the course, focusing on on the deal concept. Briefly on the winery ecosystem, e-commerce ecosystem. You've got tasting room, wine club, allocation, mailing list, email. Of course, now we have mobile commerce, wine apps, SMS text messaging, point of sale, mobile point of sale, wine kiosks, social commerce, social platforms, crowdsourcing, in-home tastings, commerce anywhere, pop-ups, tents, virtual commerce, and even more. So the wine commerce ecosystem has lots of different ways where the C applies. How is wine sold online today? It's pretty amazing. So you've got 9,000 plus wineries. You've got internet retailers like wine.com and wineries that have what are called a 1720 license, which is an internet-only license, as opposed to an O2, a production license. You got discount retailers like Wine Access. You got crowdsourced production wineries like Naked Wines. You got marketplaces like Amazon. You got community member sites like Wine Commune, flash sale sites like Wine Till Sold Out, affiliate marketing sites like Bottle Notes where they refer you to a affiliate retailer, or like Vino that does the same thing, which is a wine app. You've got wine auction sites like WineBid. You've got cause marketing sites like One Hope Wine that give 50% of their profits to charity. You've got mileage redemption sites like World Shop Gourmet where you can join a wine club with points. And you've got loyalty programs like Foley Food and Wine where you can buy things with 50% points and 50% cash. So there's all these kinds of wine business models out there that that are just scraping the surface about wine commerce. Okay, we're running out of time, but we'll go as we need here to talk about the assignment for the semester, the big project, due by March 2nd. Your assignment is to create a virtual online secondary brand for an existing winery with a tasting room. Finished product should be an outline presentation for launching the new brand based on what you've learned about selling wine online, including the model of customer progression, which you're going to learn a lot about: discovery, engagement, acquisition, loyalty. The assignment can be submitted as a PowerPoint or a Word document and need not be more than 5 pages long to make your case. The scenarios as follows. You've asked the board of directors of your winery for the opportunity to present your concept for a new online wine brand that will be funded by the existing winery, but will utilize the latest digital, social, and other creative marketing tools to build up an audience and following for the new brand. You'll only have 60 minutes to make the presentation to your board, some of whom will be attending remote with web access, so the presentation needs to be well organized, visually effective, and thorough enough that they can support further due diligence on the financial requirements and profitability of such a venture. Your presentation is therefore more of a high-level discussion of virtual brand development, does not require in-depth financial analysis. Things to consider in your presentation. What makes you different or your story compelling? How do you attract visitors and deliver your brand message to them? Why should they care? What is your plan for building and maintaining customer loyalty? What is your competitive advantage? How will you measure success? And I give you examples of wineries that have done this, meaning their primary winery brand and the secondary. So this is real-world experience. I'm telling you, this is how it is. You're working for a company. You've got an idea for a new brand. You got to make your presentation. It's at board level. You go in there. You may have some people remote, and you're doing it through PowerPoint or Prezi or Word or something else. It has to be brief. You don't need complete Excel projections, but it should be professional. And I've been doing this for 4 years now. Some of the students do amazing jobs, and some of them are really lazy and give me basically spit back some of the stuff that they take in the course with no thought or imagination, and they don't really focus on the purpose of this. So I encourage you to take it seriously. Make sure you're considering these points in your presentation. It is important. What we do at the end is I do a review of all of these, and I present maybe the top 6 or 8 of these, and we spend an hour going through them and showing you what a difference it can make. Some of you in the past have actually used this to build a business plan to get funding off of and have asked me to critique it. Happy to do that. But take this seriously, because if you don't put the effort into it, I'm going to be very disappointed. Even though it's pass-fail, I'll be very disappointed. So I encourage you, if you have any questions about it, or you want some interim guidance, happy to do it. But this is a real-life experience for you that generally I find the students really enjoy doing. And it'll utilize the tools that you've learned in the course and allow you to apply them in a way that is relevant and helps you measure success that way. So let me just check. Are there any questions? One question: will we get copies of these slides? Well, yes. This whole recording is up in Moodle, as will be the actual PowerPoint on itself. So I'll save the PowerPoint and post it tomorrow, and then I will also, the recording will be posted as well, a link, so that you'll have a chance to review this, because only half of you have attended live. A lot of other people do it at different hours. So the answer is yes. And the final assignment is also posted in Moodle on its own. Any other questions? Okay then, it's been a very pleasant hour. Welcome to the course. Again, feel free to email me, whenever you have an issue or a question or like some feedback. I'm happy to give you my words of wisdom, okay? And I will see you next week.